Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite games of all time, why I enjoy them so much, and what, to me, makes them so good and stand out from all the rest. I'm going to be going from number 5 all the way to number 1, so without further ado, let's jump into the 5th game, which is Mega Man 2. Mega Man 2 has probably the game I've played the most in this entire list, actually. I think I've played it like 40-something times. The reason that's the case is because it has very tight controls and a lot of customizability with your playthroughs. As you see here, you have 8 bosses off the hop you can choose from. Now obviously this is standard for every Mega Man game, but depending on the game, it may not be the best idea to take on a certain Robot Master. But at least in 2, maybe outside of Heatman if you don't want to do Yoku blocks, or Quick if you're not good enough at doing his lasers, you can beat every single Robot Master just with your base weapon and just go for them first. I usually tend to go for Metal Man because, well, it's Metal Man and he's the easiest. A lot of people do. But, for example, I've done playthroughs where I started with Quick Man, or Woodman, or even Flashman. You can just go from there. Heck, you could do it entirely out of order if you wanted to, if you don't care about being optimal. You could also customize it even further by only using your Buster, which is your base weapon, only using specific weapons outside of bosses and stuff like that. I feel like the controls are insanely tight even when it comes to the general series. Especially compared to its predecessor, Mega Man 1, 2 feels a lot tighter. Along with that, for Mega Man 2, I also would argue a lot of the stages are really well designed, especially compared to some other ones in the series. Astro Man! I think Mega Man 2 has a bunch of unique stages. For example, Flashman feels a lot different than Crash Man, or Metal Man, or Airman, and all that kind of stuff. Whether it be if you're going vertically, for example, in Flashman stage, you're falling down a lot. Same with Quick Man. But they feel different, even though they have the same premise. With Quick as an example, it's very fast-paced. You have instant death lasers that shoot out from each side, right? And in Flashman, it's a lot slower paced. There's more enemies throughout, more health pickups and the like, and you take longer doing it compared to Quick's rapid fire go through and try and survive. And even when going, for example, horizontally, Bubble Man and Airman, for example, are very different. Airs, you have to wait patiently, wait out the enemies, while with Bubble, in my opinion, the 8 Robot Master stages are the better designed ones, just because I played them more frequently, in all honesty. But the later game stages are so pretty solid, in all honesty. But when I stream Archipelago randomizers, which are essentially game randomizers, I pick Mega Man 2 as like one of the only games I run because it's one of my favorite games to play. So doing, for example, a randomizer also adds some intrigue. As for example, in a run, I didn't have Bubble Man stage till super late in the game, so I had to rush through him and then beat the rest of the game. And think about how you can get an item that you wouldn't usually have access to, and trying to weasel your way around it is really fun to think about. And it presents the game in a new, challenging way. Anyways, it's stuff like that that makes Mega Man 2 really special to me. The amount of times I've played it over and over and over again, compared to every other Mega Man in the series, it's kind of crazy to think about. Number 4 on my own personal list is Punch-Out for the Wii, a game I've also played a lot of, though nothing as extensively as Mega Man 2. There are a bunch of reasons why I love Punch-Out on the Wii specifically. I played it a lot on the NES, I even played through Super, didn't like it as much, but I still played through Super. I've played the series consistently throughout my entire life, just like Mega Man as well. The main reason Punch-Out sticks with me is I love using my reaction time to dodge and evade and essentially outskill my opponents. For example, in both the NES and the Wii version, there's a lot of fast attacks in the game that get thrown out at you. Super Macho Man's clothesline attack that he throws out is one of the fastest in the game, and if you're able to dodge it, you get such a large reward of just raw damage and hit stun. It's great. Or for example, Soda Popinski's uppercuts are insanely quick in the title defense match, and you have to dodge them to then get to wail on them and use that momentum in your favor. So that's a large piece of why I like Punch-Out so much, and also a lot of platformers, as you'll see on this list. Another thing with Punch-Out and why it feels so great is there's a large underdog feeling that you have throughout every single fight. You're just some 5'7", 17-year-old who weighs less than 200 pounds, going up against guys like Soda Popinski, Super Macho Man, who are all like 6'5", 6'6", 6'4", 200, 300 pounds, big muscly men, and you're somehow winning, and I have no idea, but you do it through smart defensive play. And another good feature for me in Punch-Out is when you're winning, you feel great. There's such good momentum in your way, and it's hard to lose that momentum. But if you do end up losing it, there's still the way to make it back. For example, you can heal yourself when a boxer goes down and get some health back if you mash well enough. You can have your trainer eat a chocolate bar in between one of the rounds, and that'll fill you up with like half health. So essentially, if you're doing bad and you want to still be able to adapt, you can still have those comeback mechanics. But essentially, if you're down, you're not out. And that's another thing I really love about it, as if you're losing in some games, sometimes you're just going to say, screw it, and be done. And then you try again. But with Punch-Out, there's still that feeling of, I can win this, I can win this, I can do this, until you get put down to the mat for the third time and then you're done. But at least you got that. There's also another feature that I wasn't able to get in footage, but essentially, if you're going down for the third time, which usually means you're done, Mac can sometimes do a like fake fall, essentially, where he like struggles back up before it's considered a knockdown, and that saves your bacon and lets you try again. Sometimes you immediately get hammered again, but sometimes it's able to get you the win, and it's an awesome feeling when you get that false knockdown and then are able to beat the opponent. The main other thing about Punch-Out and why I like it so much is genuinely the variety of characters and how unique they all are. Every single boxer stands out from another. You have Glass Joe. He should really retire, but he doesn't for some reason. I don't know why. He's lost 99 times, but he doesn't. But then you immediately hard cut to Macho Man, or Super Macho Man, and he's super arrogant, super cocky, never lost a fight outside of one time. But he's the entire like antithesis of Glass Joe. It's all ego instead of fear. And then you go to someone like Don Flamenco. He has an ego, but it's a different way. He's a ladies' man. He does it for his love. And he cannot take losing to you because it disgraces his honor. And then you have the exact opposite of him with literally the next fight in Aaron Ryan, who's scummy and he cheats and he's a dirtbag and he tries to headbutt you and he's crazy. And that's literally just 4 out of the 13 fights in the game. It's nuts how different every single boxer is from each other. It is awesome. Seriously, Aaron Ryan is right after Don, and it's like such a weird juxtaposition because Don Flamenco, super honorable guy, fights incredibly fairly and tries to outsmart you at your own game. Aaron Ryan, I'm not even kidding, in his title defense match, brings a flail to the ring. An entire flail that he tries to hit you with multiple times, by the way, and the ref does nothing to stop him. And he tries to headbutt you in the match, which is totally cheating, by the way, but hey, who cares? But even within those 4 characters, they're all so different and so unique between each other. And that's the entire game. Every single character you fight is this like unique sphere of personality that completely envelops you for the fight until you move on to the next boxer. No one in this game is boring, and I love that fact so much. You have like 4 guys in the same circuit. They're all super unique and super different from each other, and it's a grand old time. So I really enjoy Punch-Out because it tests my reaction time, and you have to think about how you beat an opponent, how to beat them, and how to beat them well. For example, I could hit him with a star punch here, or I could save up and try and knock him down with immediately as soon as he gets up, and that level of strategy and thought is really nice to have. The third game on my list is actually the only one I've played within this year, though it is not from this year, as it is Devil May Cry 5. Now, you shouldn't be surprised that it's on here, I'll be completely honest. I throw in so many references to Virgil throughout my videos, it's kind of crazy. I played this game back in May because I thought it was fitting, and I absolutely loved it. It is such a fun game. I've never tried anything else in that kind of genre, and it was an absolute blast to play through. When I initially played through it, I played as Nero and Dante and V, which is the standard mode in the game, but then I picked my hands up on Virgil, baby! And it absolutely changed how I play. Virgil, specifically, I'm going to be talking about him because he's my main. He's really strong, and it shows. He has a boss fight in the game. He's the final boss of the game. And when you play as him, it doesn't feel like they downgraded him at all. He feels as strong, if not stronger, than his boss counterpart. It's kind of crazy. Essentially how they do that is in the boss fight that you have against Virgil, he only uses 1 weapon. When you play as Virgil, however, he gets 2 more weapons that you can mesh with the Yamato and have a grand old time. Because you get Beowulf, which is a pair of gauntlets and boots that you can essentially melee the crap out of your enemies with, using punches and kicks, and it's also probably my favorite weapon in the entire series. But then you also have the Mirage Edge, which is this spectral sword that can cast out beams of energy, and you can throw the sword out and then combo with your other sword. It's so cool. Another thing about DMC5, not specific to Vergil, but just in general, is the feeling of power you have in this game. You are a one-man demon-killing army. For example, you can take on, like, hordes of demons. You'll go through, like, 10 demons in one combat encounter. And there's multiple combat encounters throughout a mission. You have 20 missions in the game. So over the span of the entire game, you're probably killing like 1,000 demons clean. And then that goes higher throughout the levels of difficulty that you choose. For example, I usually run Son of Sparta, which is considered hard mode, which that amplifies the amount of demons you have to fight and the amount of challenges you face. Another thing I really appreciate about DMC is you can't pick Son of Sparta difficulty off the hop. You gotta earn it. And that is such a nice way of doing it because it kind of makes you actually figure out how to play the game. So you don't have anyone that just walks in full of ego and it's like, I can play hard mode, I can totally win. And then they get absolutely dumpstered by the first boss. Essentially, how you unlock hard mode, you have to beat Devil Hunter, which is considered normal mode. There's also Human, which is easy mode, which I've used for my first playthrough because I literally never played anything in the entire series. And I've gotten so good at the game now, specifically at Vergil, that I can play on Dante Must Die mode, which is very hard. But essentially, that initial gatekeeping by the devs really pays off, as when I started the series, I never tried anything in that entire franchise, nor that entire genre in my entire life. And I absolutely found that I loved it. Another great thing about DMC5 is when you play it, you feel so stylish, as the game has a ranking system during combat. So the ranks are as follows. It goes from D to triple S. I'll explain that in a second. So you start at D when you start an initial combo. So you go from Dismal, C for Crazy, B for Badass, A for Apocalyptic, S is Savage, double S is 6 skills, and then triple S is Smokin' Sexy Style. You get these ranks as you continue a combo. So as you're styling on your opponent, you gain rank, and if you get hit, you lose it. So it's essentially a motivator to continue to be playing good as you go along, but you could totally still play the game by just ranging out your opponents and getting like D ranks, though the game motivates you to try and go for those higher ranks. Along with that, gaining mastery of the game is a great feeling as you can take on the final bosses of the game, like Dante, so you're playing as Vergil, and really go toe-to-toe with him and show him who's boss. And here's the thing, you can see those videos of people who are really, really good at the game, who spent like 7,000 hours playing it and hitting these insane tricks. But for me, I've only spent 50 hours playing it, and I still feel great about how I play, even though my tricks are relatively simple. And I'm still able to go to those really higher difficulties and do well on them, despite not hitting a 2,000 hit triple S combo that does like the enemy's entire health and erases him from existence. I can't pull that off, but I can pull off some pretty cool looking stuff. Everything about this game makes it feel cool and it makes you look cool, and it's great for that. If you ever want a game that makes it feel and look cool, play DMC5. You will feel cool the entire time you play it. Another big piece of why I enjoy DMC5 is the amount of choice you have in the game. With DMC5, depending on the character you play, outside of, I believe, V, Nero, Dante, and Vergil all have some form of choice in how you can make them play. Nero, for example, has different Devil Breaker arms that you can choose from, and those customize his playstyle, as he's supposed to be kind of a beginner character. Dante is absolutely crazy for choice, as you have 4 different guns you can use, 4 different weapons, and 4 different styles that you can go from. But for my boy Vergil, you got 3 different weapons. But there's also the moment-to-moment choice of what move do I want to use. Do I want to be far? Do I want to be away? Do I want to shoot the guy into the air? Do I want to stay on the ground? There's also a big thing with Vergil is instead of having guns like Dante does, he has essentially like spectral swords that he can shoot. These spectral swords, you have multiple different options. You can shoot them forward at your enemy, make a ring around said enemy, and then shoot them upwards into the air. You can make them hover around yourself as kind of a guard that damages the opponents. The last one you can do is like essentially a sword rain that stuns them for a while. You can use all the weapons individually and still do a great job with them, or you can mix and match and try and hit some sick combos with all 3 of them combined. Essentially, a big thing of why I like DMC5 so much is I was able to get into it. I never played a game in the series and was able to do well enough to beat it, and then well enough to beat it again, and then well enough to beat it again on multiple different modes from easy all the way to very hard without ever touching a game in that genre before in my entire life. I will say, along with that, for DMC5, the characters are also really interesting. For example, Nero has to deal with the fact that it's his uncle and his dad fighting and trying to kill each other. So he has to step in and be the biggest man in the room and stop this little sibling rivalry from going on. So he gains his power through that kind of motivation of, oh, I gotta stop them from destroying the world. Virgil, for example, wants to gain more power, as I've mentioned in probably multiple videos. But even when it comes to Dante, he just wants to eat pizza and have a good time, and he has fun doing that. So even within those three characters, Dante and Virgil very much are different. Virgil is cold and calculating and very motivated, while Dante is more lackadaisical, but he just wants to have some fun and relax. And Nero, he's kind of a mix of those two, as he didn't really get trained by his dad, he got trained by Dante. So he acts a bit more like Dante, as he's a bit more cocky and brash. But like his dad, he also is quite highly motivated in protecting those he loves. So he uses it in a different way from his dad. The second game on the list is Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows, which used to be my favorite for a long time until I played the next game on the list. With Shovel Knight Plague of Shadows, a massive key piece of why I love the game is the amount of customizability you have. For example, you can make the bombs that you fire as Plague Knight, you can customize them, whether they have a long fuse, a short fuse, a sentry-like fuse, and you even have more customizability in the Arcanas, which are basically magic, that you use. Whether you want to use a big explosion, a vat that you can shoot out, and all different sorts of things. Along with that, how you fly in the game, because Plague Knight can float, essentially, is you can make it, if it does damage when you fly, can you maybe float for an extended period of time? Could you shoot out a projectile when you fly? And all those kind of things. Even, once again, going back to those bombs, you can even make how they explode different. I usually like to run the basic one, but you can make it so that it's a big explosion, or that it can be combo into itself. It's really fun, actually. The main piece, though, why I like Plague of Shadows so much, is the story. I think out of every single game on this list, without a doubt, Plague of Shadows has my favorite story. Essentially, Plague of Shadows has a love story between Plague Knight, our main character, and Mona, his fellow alchemist. Plague Knight, throughout the game, is essentially collecting essences of his foes and putting them together to make an ultimate potion so he can be strong enough to be with Mona. But at the end of the game, he realizes that by literally fighting himself, by the way, he has to fight himself in the game, but he essentially realizes by the end of the game that he doesn't need to be this almighty warrior who's super duper strong and intelligent and smart and basically amazing at everything. He just has to be him. I'm really a sucker for love stories, so that really got me. But also seeing that personal growth of Plague Knight is a really awesome piece of the game. So much so that it inspired a lot of my own work. Hence why I've thrown a lot of love stories in my own game, as I was heavily inspired by Plague of Shadows when I first played it. But essentially, Plague Knight is a very good main character. He's very funny. And he also has a very, very good story to tell. A little bit of spoilers, but by the end of the game, he has made the potion, this ultimate potion. But he decides to throw it away and just be like, wait, let's go do something fun, Mona. And that's who ends the game, essentially. Another reason why I like the game so much is the controls. That might seem weird, as I've heard a fair bit of people actually complain about the controls of Plague of Shadows, but I actually kind of like how it feels. Outside of the slipperiness of Plague when he's on the ground. Outside of that, personally, I love how he controls in the air. Essentially, the set I run is very high air mobility. I will charge up my burst, shoot into the air, jump, use my burst so I fly further into the air, and because I specifically pick out the float burst, I have a lot of hang time, and I hang for 7 seconds or something crazy like that. And then I use the Vat, which is an Arcana that you can use to summon a platform beneath you. And essentially, I loop that and go crazy far throughout the stage, as you've been seeing in these clips. And along with that, I use the very fast and easy to use bombs, which are essentially the basic set with a quick fuse. And that's it. Along with that, the ending of the game is one of my own personal favorites in all of gaming. As I mentioned before, Plague decides to, instead of becoming this all-powerful being, he just decides to be himself and be with the one he loves. But along with that, he's been kind of nervous around his love interest, Mona, the entire game, being unable to dance around her, even though you can dance around literally any other NPC in the game. The stages in the game are also really unique and stand out from each other. For example, the intro level in the game is nice and grassy and very simple in platforming. Compare that to Propeller Knight stage, in which you're on this flying ship and you have a bunch of wind effects pushing you up, pushing you to the right, pushing you back. In the Exploratorium, you have all these moving platforms and vats that burst open and all these explosions going on. It's a very different feeling level to level. And they're all super unique in both color palettes and gameplay. The last game I want to talk about on this list is one I've talked about before on this channel, and that is Mega Man Arena. Mega Man Arena, or MMA for short, is my personal favorite game of all time, as I spent a long time playing this game, and it's probably the game I have the most hours in. Mega Man Arena is essentially a mesh of Super Smash Bros. Melee, which the devs took inspiration from, and classic Mega Man platforming. And you essentially mesh those together, throw in a bunch of different characters, and all the bosses throughout the entire series, give them cool, unique movesets, and boom, you got MMA. Now, while that is a pretty brief summarization of it, the mechanical depth of MMA, and just the insanity of how large the cast is, being a fan game with over 50 characters at this current time. And I used to be a alpha tester for the game, and when I initially joined, I think it was maybe less than 30, and in the 2 to 3 years that I was there, they added so many characters. I personally have 4 favorites that I love to play constantly, and those are Airman, Hardman, don't laugh, Sparkman, and Tark. I'll come back to Tark in a minute because I have a lot to say about him, because he was my truest main, I would argue, and easily my best character in the entire game. But essentially, those 4 all have very different styles, even from each other, and that goes for the entire cast. For example, Airman and Hardman are complete opposites. Airman is a zoner. I don't play him like one, but he's a zoner. He has a bunch of projectiles that all do the same amount of damage, just 3 damage, and he has a bunch of different ways to use the projectiles. Whether that just be a standard shots out of the opponents, but even then he can change that to be on the ground or in the air. He has a wall that he can summon essentially, that is a wall of 4 different tornadoes like his original boss fight, and he can use those to deflect projectiles. And he also has a move that essentially if his target is approaching him, he can shoot them into the air as he hits them with the projectiles, and that'll lay them up for another regular shot. But then you have Hardman, entirely completely polar opposite. With Hard, and you want to get in close, you want to get right in their face and then punch the living crap out of them. And it's entirely different from Airman. Essentially, you have a punch that then combos into an uppercut, which then, if you want to, you could grab them and throw them against the wall and then uppercut them. You have a knuckle or 2 knuckles that you can shoot out, and they're essentially detachable fists that fly around the arena, and you can combo into those too. You have this long jump because Hardman is the slowest character in the game, so you could use that to essentially leap over the entire arena just to get to your opponent. And then you have one of my favorite moves in the entire game, which is Hardman's Dive. And Hardman's Dive is essentially the Ganondorf Warlock Punch of the game. It is a 10 damage move. Most characters have 28 HP, by the way. Hardman's Dive does 10 damage. And you can combo into it, dealing 13 damage. So essentially, half the person's health. And it is only 6 energy out of the 28 you have. And if you hit this, it does so much damage. But essentially, if you hit it, it is A, funny, B, you do so much damage, and C, your opponent is usually so shocked that genuinely you could just punch him again, and it's great. And it also hits him with a lot of hit stun, so essentially you can use that to lay up another combo for yourself. So even within those 2 characters, very different gameplay. And with my other 2 mains, entirely different as well. Sparkman is very much burst orientated. So he has this large spark that you have to set up by stunning your opponent, and essentially you stun them, hit them with the big attack, and essentially that's the loop. But you can also recharge your energy much faster than other characters, so you can stun them more consistently. And then you have ways to avoid and dodge, because, well, you gotta make sure that while you're charging, you don't get interrupted. And there's also ways to set up multiple back-to-back sparks to help out the large spark, or you could just do the large spark raw and just chuck it out and hope it hits. And then lastly, when it comes to Tark, oh boy, there's a lot to say. He only has 3 moves. You might think that's not a lot, but you can do a lot with 3 moves. I'm just going to tell you that now. So essentially, Tark is one of the lower HP characters in the game. He has a standard shot that you can charge up to do for 4 damage, and you can shoot 2 of them to spread out along a range. You have a cross that you can shoot out that is essentially a large projectile that does the same amount of damage as your regular shot, and you can also change the direction of which it will go. You can either send it to go high, medium, or low. And essentially, with the cross, you can do some damage from farther away, or even up close if you just press it immediately. And lastly, my favorite move in the entire game is Tark's Dash. It is an insanely simple move in premise, but what you can do with it is what makes it awesome. Essentially, Tark's Dash, initially, if you think about it, it is just a high-speed damage deflector. Tark throws himself into the enemy, and he has a deflector that he has up in front of him, which allows him to deflect any projectiles. But here's the thing. First of all, you can use it in both the ground and the air. Second of all, is you can do a second dash if you jump. So essentially what you can do is chain dashes together and have insane movement because Tark's movement speed goes up when you dash. He essentially doubles his movement. So what I personally like to do is dash until my opponent's ankles are so broken that they need to go to the hospital. And I go from there. That may be a little graphic, but that's literally how I play. I'm not even kidding. I play so fast that I essentially disorientate my opponent. Essentially, what I'm able to do with Tark is I'll dash on the ground, then I'll jump into the air, still retain my speed from the ground dash, then hit the ground again, dash again, go back up into the air, shoot them, go back down, jump again, and then dash into the air again. And you can use that in a variety of ways. For example, what I would commonly do to my opponents is be in the air, dash into them, hit the ground, jump, and then loop back and dash right back into them. Essentially, breaking their ankles, as you can choose what directions you move while you do it. This is also really hard to execute, by the way. Now, obviously, Tark is not an insane character to counter, but he was so fun to play. Tark obviously loses to some characters. Essentially, anyone that can stop him when he's moving, because he's not invulnerable when he's in the air. I also have actually gotten really inspired from his gameplay, in that essentially, if I was ever to make a platformer, I'd want to base it off Tark's really high movement. And essentially, your base speed is half of what you could do once you hit your top speed, but your top speed you can toggle on and off, like Tark's dash, and you can chain it together to essentially go as fast as you want. Either go slow and steady, or you could blitz through everything, and essentially being able to turn it on and off instead of having constant speed, to me, is really appealing, because you can essentially tune your run to what you think is the best play at that time. And out of every single character in the cast, out of 54 characters, every single character feels unique, and that's a great thing. From Mega Man to Proto Man, even to Bass, those three characters all feel entirely different. Even between my four mains, all of them are very, very different characters. The other really awesome thing about Mega Man Arena is that the game is really, really easy to get into. All you need to go to is go to the website, download it, and then just say, yes, I would like to play. And then the characters themselves are really simple, only having maybe 3 to 7 moves. Every single character has a neutral shot, which is the basic shot I've been talking about, a special 1, and a special 2. And that's it. And essentially, every single character plays like that, but then you learn, if you, let's say, hold up and S1, then you do a different kind of shot, or down in S1 you do a different kind of shot. And the last thing about why this game to me is so great is that the devs are insanely passionate. So the community is honestly the best I've ever been in for a gaming community in my entire life. And even though I was relatively new, they gave me an opportunity to do some tournament organizing. And I learned how to tournament organize from that. Anyways, that's my top 5 favorite games of all time. Leave in the comments below what your favorite 5 games of all time are. Anyways, next video is going to be me talking about the main character of Critical, and then further on, I'm going to be talking about the rivals in the game as well. Anyways, that'll be about it for this one. I've been Fire. See ya.